let's say I loved stained glass. I I love to work with glass. Stained glass is gorgeous and beautiful. I love it so much I go to school for it. I go to school for it and I start honing and mastering the craft, and I think it brings joy into people's lives. It helps people worship and connect to their deities. Stained glass is this beautiful thing that is making the world better. And not only do I love doing it, but I also love sharing it with people. And after I work at getting really good at making large artworks of stained glass, I start selling them. And people are thrilled and appreciative, and they even travel. They travel from states over to get this stained glass because it resonates with them too, and they find meaning and value in it, and it brings joy to their life. So I'm getting to share this stained glass. They're getting to value it. I'm charging because I went to school and I need the materials. I need to sustain myself and also live my life. And it's really lovely. And then someone contacts me because they love stained glass too. They say, I would really love stained glass, but my prices are out of their budget. That makes sense. Sometimes maybe the materials I use, I source from very specific places, which is what makes it so beautiful and lustrous, but it costs more. And maybe the time I take isn't what a big factory or industry would do, but that also is why it makes it so special, but it costs more. So I'm not in their price range for stained glass. That's unfortunate, but there's not much to be done there. And then that person says, well, hey, why don't you come over and make your stained glass for me, and I'll paint this ceramic mug for you. Then we're both getting to work with textiles, or not textiles, with glass or ceramics. That's what it's like for me when people say, well, I don't want to pay you for cuddling, but if you just want to be friends and chat, then I would love that. When someone's contacted me for my work. And the point of that story is that beautiful works of stained glass that take years to learn how to master and figure out all of the best places to source the material and all of the best techniques to use in order to cut it perfectly and create the most intricate or patterns. I don't actually know anything about stained glass, y'all. I'm making this up, right? But you get what I'm saying. Is not the same as painting a ceramic mug. But to someone who doesn't know anything about what goes into it, thinks, well, we're both, like, I'm not asking for a huge stained glass piece. I just want a stained glass piece for a spot on my window. It's about the same size, right? So if this ceramic thing I'm asking for is about this big, and the cup that I want is about this big, they're about the same size, right? That's what it's like when someone says, oh yeah, we'll just chat and be friends. Because that's actually not what I do. I do have friends. I do just chat with people. That's different. And that's not what they know. They don't know it, but that's not what they're asking for. They're asking for the service because we're not taught. This is again, it's also not a big judgment. It's trying to help understand why this isn't the same thing. And part of that is because the things I went to school for to do what I do, I know a lot of neuroscience. I know how the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is interacting with your different fight. I'm trying not to use too many obnoxious big words. but the fact that I am also doing that too, the translating the academic, very scientific gobbledygook language that I know and learned in, translating that to concepts that everyone can relate to, even who haven't taken those courses and who haven't learned that. That is a skill, right? It's like saying, okay, well, I know that I'm also gonna use this very simple metaphor. I know that when you inhale, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, and when you exhale, it's your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system um, is the active one. The parasympathetic nervous system is the calming one. They call it like rest and digest is one of the phrases they use for it, because it is your parasympathetic nervous is responsible for calming you down, for your rest states, for your a lot of your digestion. That's what it's connected to, and so that's why I am injecting specific breathing techniques at different points of my sessions. Even just when I say, yeah, let's take a big deep breath here. The reason I say that phrase in session is because I'm clocking what's going on in someone's body. I'm watching their nervous system, and I'm noticing that here in this moment, activating their parasympathetic nervous system is going to help them process this thing or sink deeper into it. I also know that different bodily reactions like burping or coughing or clearing your throat are part of emotional processes. So I'm clocking when people are doing those things so that I can help take them through these emotional comforts. I also know how trauma is impacting your brain and psyche. Like, there is so much that goes into me holding space for people. In addition to knowing the physiological benefits, and I know about different muscle masses where they collide, where they're grouped together. I know about it so that when we're cuddling, if we're pressing on something, we aren't cutting off circulation, or it might be uncomfortable for someone who's had like a injury in their lat. So there's all these different things that I'm doing in session. I'm not saying out loud that I'm doing them. They just make what I do skillful. And it's not the same as someone sitting down to chat. Because when we're sitting down to chat, you're thinking about the next thing that you're going to say, or thinking about it's interesting, like what I'm saying, and you're curious about how it relates to your life, or you're curious about what else that might be relating to in my life, right? There's curiosities there. Whereas I'm watching whether or not a trauma response is being activated in a memory, or and if we can bilaterally stimulate your brain through touch, through eye movement. I'm not doing EMDR, but there are techniques that are familiar for EMDR therapists that can be used in other, the simple fact of bilaterally stimulating your brain can help rewire or take someone out of kind of a trauma spiral if they're just kind of in a pattern, not into a flashback. That's not what I mean, just in a trauma pattern. I also know about different parts work. A method of that is called IFS, internal family systems. Like, these are the things I'm bringing to a session. That's the stained glass, right? So chit-chatting and being friends is not the same. That's not to put it down. That's not to... my biggest goal in making this video, and I guess this is a very roundabout way of achieving this goal, but emotional labor, the unseen and unspoken depth and world of holding space, holding exquisite space for someone. There is labor and skill that goes into that, but our culture and society hasn't always recognized and valued that. And it's largely because that skill is in some ways inherently taught to women. So this is my invitation to remind people that both the labor you are doing to hold exquisite space for others, that's work. It's different than just chatting, right? Like when you're sitting there with a friend and they're in a space of hurt and you put yourself aside and you're really there, not devaluing or deprioritizing your needs and well-being, but just for that moment, really focusing on how you can support and help the other person. That's labor. There's skill there. It's beautiful. That's not saying that labor sometimes has the connotation, that word sometimes has the connotation of like, well, it's hard work and we don't want to do hard work. No, that's not true. Some people love their jobs. In the culture that we live in, it's fewer and far between, but some people love it. Some people love making stained glass, right? And so that is labor. Recognize that and restore yourself accordingly. Also value it accordingly. And if other people are providing you with that labor, see it. Appreciate it for what it is. It's not to feel guilty, but to recognize what a gift. What a huge gift and beautiful gift that is. If people are sharing that with you one-on-one, and if you're seeking someone who's extremely skilled at it, how that labor is just as valuable, as just as much labor and valuable and as obvious a thing as making exquisite works of stained glass. That's a physical trait. You can see the product of it in the world. It's tangible. But I would argue that the product of my work is tangible too in the lives of the people who are now unstuck, who are now smiling more every day, who now have a world full of people surrounding them, caring for them, because the work that we did together made that safe, made trusting possible, reminded them to believe it was possible and that they weren't alone. So I hope that helps. And I love sharing my stained glass.